purpose of having a full treatment versus just only ceramic coating the surfaces that you would normally wax is very simple. You can apply the coatings to every single material, and it would make more sense to have the same function, right? We have a hydrophobic non-stick surface on each material. This gives you a streamlined approach, very efficient approach at that, to maintenance, which is just going to consist of the washing and drying. Your function is going to be on 100% of the vessel. So instead of having to deal with a vinyl treatment, a spray or any type of lotion that's on the market, metal, oils, Sheila Shine, woody wax, instead of having to wax over top of these different things like powder coating or your enclosure, your windshield, you now have one surface to deal with. So it's very, very clean. And we love continuity at DNA. We love efficiency. So this is what we can give you by doing that. And that's going to give you the easiest route in the future to having simple maintenance. Number one, waxes and oil. Think about butter. What's butter do in the sun? It melts. Doesn't matter how polymerized they are, okay? It doesn't matter, it's an oil, it's a solidified oil. Ceramic coatings are glass. They essentially turn from a liquid into a glass. They're called sol gels normally, and what you have is a very basic idea. We're gonna glue hard glass-like substance to the surface. What are the benefits of that? So many actually, that once you realize what you have, it's hard to ever go back to the old conventional wax or sealants. And I'm not saying that waxes and sealants are not going to do a specific job. However, the big thing is durability. So you'll never be able to beat out a ceramic coating system, especially at the ultra level like we do at DNA, with a solidified oil in a can or even a lotion. It doesn't matter what it is. So big thing there is durability. Big difference is going to be function as well, because while you're experiencing ownership with a ceramic coating, you're going to notice that everything performs all the time. So not only do we get that performance all the time, we get it for a long period of time. And then of course, the gloss is ridiculous. It really is absolutely above and beyond. This is a pretty popular question as well, because everyone's always wondering, like, what is the downside to having a treatment done? What am I gonna be involved with in the future? And they kind of have some fear. Here's the thing, there's only one thing that you can do to really mess up ceramic coatings and make the ownership experience not as good. And that's gonna be water spots. They happen on everything, even on wax finishes, you can get water spots. The only difference is ceramic coating is not sacrificial. It's not gonna give itself up like wax will. So anything that's on top of it, you can remove these with light water spot removers. And if they're fresh, there's a really cool trick to getting them off under the maintenance category, and we're going to talk about that later. There really isn't a comparison from DNA to the rest of the world right now. We like to really pride ourselves in the fact that we've done so many coatings. I myself have a great understanding. In just under 14 years, I've seen a lot. And the one thing I can tell you is the system that I've built here at DNA was really purpose-built for the marine environment. It wasn't taken from any other industry. The really unique thing about the DNA system is simply that we have a very high solids coating, above 62%. We're able to use that on 95% of the vessel. And also we're dual layering that material, and we don't work on the base and top coat system. Many of the systems like that out there in the marketplace right now, believe it or not, are gonna fall short, because a top coat, when it's made to be more hydrophobic than what's underneath, is actually weaker. So the more smooth and the more hydrophobic you get, the weaker the coating will be. That is hands down right from the formulator's mouth. So what did we do? We picked something that was flexible still, but a high solids, an extremely deep gloss, and we wanted that to be our base. How do we keep them smooth though? Well, that's what the aftercare products are for. We finish every ultra coating here, really every ceramic coating for that matter, in our Luminex ceramic wax. For those of you who like to be excellent and keep everything foxy in your life, use the Ceramic DNA product line to your benefit. Utilizing these products on a monthly basis and following the system that we provide will give you the best outcome, whether that's using the Regenix on high exposure areas as well as the rest of the vessel multiple times a month, and even making sure that you're tending to drying the boat off all the time when you come in, using our Slick AF all over the instrument screens. The point here is to use all of the products that were designed to go with this coating system and to just follow the tips. Keep it classy. Ultimately, when you want to look at durability and how far can you go with your coating system, it's all going to come down to you and your maintenance. It's very important to understand that you can simply get 50% more durability. I mean this literally, if you're just to use the aftercare products. But there's also some minimal things that you should do, things that you don't want to leave out. But here's the first tip. Number one, always dry your boat off. The reason that people get water spots is normally because they come in and they're lazy or they're tired. It doesn't matter which one. They just want to rinse all the salt off and leave that hard water on there. I recommend never doing that. The reason is hard water spots are difficult to get off. If you're doing that over time, you're going to end up really just trashing your coating. So we have the Dry Lux towel to make that drying very fast, and everybody can join in. There's no need to have 4 different poles with pole chamois on it. Now everybody can have a Dry Lux towel in each hand, and you can basically get done in half the time. Rule number 2 is applying the Regenix product to all of your high exposure areas. So think about a hardtop, the gunnel cap, transom area. Those areas are under constant attack. Now, if you're indoor kept, we'll talk about that later, but outdoor vessels all the time, you're gonna wanna make sure that you use that product very liberally on top of those surfaces, and that's gonna give you a chance to actually add the UV blocking in on top of the coating that you have. Remember, coatings don't have UV blocking or absorbing technologies built into them. That is a myth in the industry. So rule number 2, always use Regenix on high UV exposed areas. There are 3 main categories that we can base this question off of. Number 1 is outdoor. We have all of our data actually from all the outdoor vessels full-time here at DNA. The last dozen years, we've had a great understanding. I've seen everything. However, I know that if an outdoor vessel is maintained, it's gonna make it to the end of the year with very little damage. And so normally on an outdoor kept vessel, you're gonna see the need for some refresh. Again, it's gonna be the hard top, gunnel cap, a brow, anything that's gonna be under full-time exposure. So the question of how long does it last? Well, this is kind of dynamic because you have multiple materials on the vessel, and coatings work with the materials that are actually underneath. So let's say the powder coating was made to be long wearing and it's very strong against outside oxidation. We've basically just tripled that ability by putting a coating over top of it. So that powder coating is going to last probably 8 times longer than the hard top finish. So the gel coat itself, manufacturers have different blends. Some use a low-end barrel, some use the high-end barrel. So the gel coat has its own UV inhibitors. That's going to determine how long the area is going to be functioning. But one thing I can assure you is if you use aftercare products, you will lengthen the durability of that finish by 50%. We've seen it, and it's in a way of saying, well, if you didn't have to refresh that hard top at 12 months, it went to 18 months. Normally, we see on the interior walls of a vessel about 2 years until you really need to do anything. And it doesn't mean that the coating's actually left the surface. It's just how well have you maintained it? Did we accumulate water spots? Are we dulling in certain areas? The sun can cast its light at different angles all day long. Another thing to consider is, of course, outdoor, do you have any covers? So covered areas are always gonna last longer than the ones that are uncovered. We generally try to make sure that everyone understands the reason for an annual service is so that we can implement a fix-it-as-you-go kind of system and detail on an annual level. So we get a really good read of what's going on and how well all the materials are wearing. Once you go into the next category, into indoor, things change dramatically. You're out of the sun, okay? And most time we see that people who are indoor kept vessels, their use goes down. So they're not really out there as much. And that's kind of a behavioral thing within the industry. But indoor means you're out of the sun. So now you can double the numbers, okay? You may not even need to do any fixing at an annual level for the first 2 years. And normally, like I said, what's gonna happen is at that 2-year level, you're gonna see the neglect, all right? You're gonna see maybe the rust that's a little extra. You're gonna see the water spots. You're gonna see maybe the water line starting to wear a little bit. But big thing is you're gonna double the length of time that you have that function from that coating. And then seasonal. Great question for the seasonal boaters out there. Here's the deal, if you're only using the vessel 3 or 4 months out of the year and then you're putting it away, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna have a coating that's gonna last you 3 times, maybe, longer than what we do on a vessel out on a lift. So a lot of that is simply having to do with the UV. So UV and heat play a big part in gel coat letting go of coatings. And it does happen naturally, no matter what system's out there. If anybody says that it can last 10 years or 5 years on its own with no maintenance, it's a lie. We know this because we've been doing it so long. Seasonal, outdoor, indoor, all different life expectancies. However, it's the same exact maintenance. It's the same exact idea every year with the annual checkup. And therefore, we're giving you a really consistent ownership experience, no matter where you're at. Every single year, you should really think about what are you gonna do to help lengthen the time that you're gonna get out of the original coating you got. It's also a good time for us to take away all the sins. It's a very common thing that people just don't detail at the level that a professional would. They don't take time to go in and out of the hatches as much. Unless it's managed by a crew or captain, someone who's under their own ownership, owner-operator, will generally have some things that they need help with. Also, the annual service is good because we're checking in on the performance of the entire vessel. We're looking at what needs to be replaced, what needs to be refreshed. Also, think about this. When we go through these, we're really scouring every inch of the vessel, so we will find voids on the bottom of the boat, little cracks, scratches, different things. Generally, 80% of the boats that come in need some kind of extra help outside of ceramic DNA, and we're able to help facilitate getting those things done within project management, whether that's sending out bent props or repainting lower units, voids on the bottom, as far as gel coat repairs. So the annual service is a full checkup. Annual service cost is all gonna be based on what is actually needed. Our goal is to give you back the entire vessel the way you bought it the first day. Outdoor cap vessels, you're gonna see some extra wear and tear on the hardtop gunnel cap. So there's gonna be a price to restore that and to refresh that coating and then the rest of the detail. So you're gonna have one kind of setup there. Indoor cap, you're gonna have probably the need for a really good full cleansing detail. And that's gonna give you back, again, the same brand new finish, super tight, and that would be way less probably than what the outdoor would. The differences are always gonna be in really how much work is needed, because it's not just about replacing coating, they're still paying for a detail service. So some people take care of their vessels, some don't. So the price is gonna range. When we get to that point, we'll always have a discussion about what level the vessel's at. We video communicate so we can actually show you what's wrong, what's right, and we'll get an estimate together on site as soon as we have all that data. Hard to guess over the phone if we haven't seen it. So as always, these are services that are gonna be done after visual inspection and communication with our clientele. Well, I mean, this is one of those things where it happens. In fact, we're shooting this on a vessel that missed. We're at 18 months, but again, indoor cat vessel, so not that big of a deal. I would recommend that you don't miss the annual service. The reason is, if you're outdoors, you're gonna really get behind the 8 ball. So remember, the more wear and tear, the more cost you're gonna have to refresh. But don't think about it just as a money thing. Think about the vessel itself. How long do you wanna wait until your hardtop is smoked? I would say always try to be more proactive than reactive. 100% best way to go. The reality is, if you miss the annual service, we're gonna keep calling anyway to remind you. It's part of our customer service. It's part of us handling the equipment for you. Covers are awesome. Absolutely. If you're gonna be able to cover the entire vessel, awesome. Cocoon type covers where you can actually go from hard top down the waterline, 100% gonna be better than not having one. People always ask this because they say, hey, I'm investing in the ceramic coating, why would I need a cover? Or the other flip of that is, I'm getting a cover, why do I need a ceramic coating? Well, let's answer, I have a ceramic coating, why do I need a cover? If it befits you, I would recommend always having a full cover to stop UV damage, period, okay? You're lowering the temperature of the surface. You're giving a chance for the coatings to work a lot more on their own versus having, a competitive force on them all the time. Also, just remember that full covers are covering every material. So, vinyl wears one way, gel coat wears another. All the different materials wear at different levels. So here again, you're creating a very good consistency, something that's very standardized for the maintenance. Unfortunately, covers, when they're that big, they take time to put on, take off. Generally, people don't like to do that. So I still recommend, if money's not the issue and you're just looking at it from a perspective of how do I get the best long-term effects of the coating and also just keep my boat in great shape, put a full cover on it. Partial covers, however, are gonna be good for those specific areas they're covering. So the same idea, you're gonna cover the area that you want, whether it's forward seating or rear seating or just a console. But keep in mind, wherever you have a break where the cover stops and starts, you're always gonna see a line. Just like if you had a wax surface, you're gonna see the oxidation happen on the outside of that cover and it'll show itself. But again, you got a ceramic coating system, so the wear is gonna be way less. But I do recommend that if you have partial covers, put them on. It's never gonna hurt, so use them if you have them. New vessels coming and you decide you wanna get a full cover. I get asked this a lot. Why do I wanna have a ceramic coating if I'm buying a full cover? Well, just go back to the one of the three F's, that is function. So function in a way of having the non-stick dry erase board cleanup. The gloss is one thing, the easy drying is another. Function, it's all about function. You're creating one scenario by blocking UV and lowering the surface temperatures, but you're also then giving it a chance to almost be like you're indoor kept. And having a ceramic coating that's indoor kept, if you will, is gonna last 2 times longer. Now you have a function that's gonna last twice as long. And you've done that by using that cover. The first reason, the only real reason that coatings were used was to block oxidation. And I don't mean the after effect of oxidation, okay? The chalkiness or the rust or anything like that. What I mean is the actual atmosphere trying to swap molecules with the surface. Believe it or not, that's an invisible reaction going on all the time. But why does that matter though if you have a ceramic coating on the surface? Well, number one, once you stop the stress of oxidation, you allow the materials underneath to work the way they were designed. So going back to the conversation of the different levels of gel coat barrels, so some manufacturers will put a good high quality UV stabilizer or inhibitor or absorber. That is gonna be one way. Some will put a low quality. So you're gonna have two different worlds. Coating still works the same way though, you're just trying to block atmosphere. Well, the way that we really get this to stick on there for a long period of time, then it becomes these really, really crazy chemical binders. Those are gonna have a reaction with the surface, basically become part of the surface, and therefore holding the glass side onto that material. So we're basically stopping oxidation, we're keeping that property glued to the surface, and then as far as what you get out of it, we always talk about function. The coating works and functions because it has a nanoscale top finish, meaning it's very level. So all these little particles are gonna be completely level. Think about water when it just wants to rest. Well, that's really what these coatings do when they organize. So you're creating this really hard film on the top and you get the hydrophobic quality out of course, using things like silica, which is hydrophobic naturally, and that will give you the hydrophobic quality. Well, within that hydrophobic quality, you'll see that this non-stick action is also there. So that comes from the chemical makeup of the coating that you bonded to the surface to keep the oxidation off. So it's kind of a cool concept, gluing something to the surface that functions that way. Our DNX coating is actually a very squeaky, kind of grippy coating, and that is the one that we apply to the non-skid. So for those of you who are going to be monkeying around on deck, don't worry too much about slipping. Just remember, wear shoes, go barefoot, just don't wear socks on the boat. Many people ask me this all the time, if they can treat the bottom of the boat. And normally their story is, you know, I'm gonna go for a week to the Bahamas. That's kind of my annual thing, or I go to 2 to 3 weeks. Permex is definitely strong enough to withstand a 2 to 3 week soak over in the Bahamas, or let's say this, a weekend behind the house. Here's the one thing to understand. Ceramic coating like this, high solids, high performance, is really gonna be effective down there at giving you not only a hydrodynamic ability, but also that non-stick quality, and really sealing out that gel coat from tannin stains, especially scum lines, things like that. If your intent is to go on vacation and spend time in the water, or just to have the boat sit over the weekend, Permex bottom coating is going to be 100% a viable solution for you. Anything outside of that, I would start to recommend Holmax, which is the clear foul release, or if that doesn't really work for your scenario, getting into bottom paint. Permex is strong enough to actually sit in the water, take little barnacles, little growth of grass and slime, and still be highly cleanable when you come back. We've done this many times in our career, and it's really worked out quite well. In fact, you can even acid wash over top of that coating if you have some kind of light growth, and you'll get 100% clean effect. Peter the painter has to do a gel coat repair on your vessel. Well, don't worry, because they're going to be sanding through that coating pretty easily. On all the areas that have to be repaired, you're always going to see that the process of prep requires sanding. So don't ever think that there's going to be an issue with doing the repair itself. But it is good to note that if you own a DNA coating, you do want to inform the painter or the gel coat specialist that you do have it. So when they go to do their blend, they know to polish that coating back away from the blend areas. That way they'll get a good clean bond. If it doesn't, guess what? They're gonna immediately see fish eyeing. But to keep this point simple, ceramic coatings can be removed. They are not permanent if you're going to be sanding. There's really only one material that I always end up telling prospective customers that they're gonna have a little bit more maintenance with and really don't get the same result. High polished metals. Whether it's a boat or a statue or anything, high polished chrome, high polished aluminum, brass, stainless steel. The reason that the coatings don't work so well, and it's not that they don't work at all, it's they don't work as long term. It all has to do with anchoring. And anchoring is just a simple way of saying the ability for a coating or a chemical matrix to be kind of formed. So really the coating anchoring in and grabbing to the surface. So when you polish over metal, it could be rod holders or handles or things like that that you see around the vessel, those are not going to be as durable when you're looking at the coating as the other materials around. However, you might still get 6 months out of it, but if you're a really good student, you may never notice that the coating is wearing until about a year. So just keep in mind, high polished metals, not going to give you the same. You're still going to get tarnish on them eventually if you don't maintain. Don't ruin the party. If you don't dry the vessel, this is not for people who have $5,000 water treatment systems. You can get away with it, but I'm still going to recommend that you guys wipe the boats down once in a while. But for those of you who have regular dock water, you need to know this. Hard water stains are going to be the baddest thing you could do to yourself. And it's really the only thing. So dry the boat off. I've heard this before. Well, I really don't want to have to dry the boat off. That's a lot of work. I really don't plan on doing that after a long day. Quite all right. I recommend this. Leave the salt on the vessel, number one, if you're not going to get to drying it. Come back tomorrow. If it's Sunday, just come back tomorrow. Get out there in the morning, get the work done, rinse it, dry it off. Drying the vessel also helps you not only get the water off, but think about it. You're wiping down the surfaces, therefore keeping them much more clean. And remember, the Drylux is a very, very high quality microfiber, so it cleans the best. Microfiber is the king cleaner. So dry the vessel for best results for surface care. You're out all day and you're fishing, you're using your freshwater washdown, aren't you? Implement vinegar into your washdown, okay? Everybody uses their boat a little bit different, so just remember this. Freshwater spots are easily removed with vinegar. Here's a simple way to do it. Put the vinegar, household vinegar, white vinegar, straight into a spray bottle, and as you're running the Drylux towel over the surface, spray the surface a little bit with the vinegar. That acetic acid is gonna loosen up that little bit of mineral and give you a smooth finish. So that's step number one if you have water spots that are fresh. If you have some that you are suspecting are gonna be a little bit harder to come off, think about a water spot remover. We can recommend those. We always use them here in our facility, but that's a little bit more getting into chemical removal with heavy acid or even mild acids. So you just have to be careful with that. Just know that water spots are removable. For the case of heavy water spots, we're talking about real neglect. It's not that your coating is ruined. It's just that everything is piled up on top. And so sometimes we're gonna have to go through a machine compounding process. But here's the thing, that's generally done during the annual service because everyone kind of knows like, hey man, I can't get to the hull sides throughout the year when I'm washing. I can't dry them off all the time. Some people just can't get the effort level up there to do it. All walks of life, all different scenarios. Here's the thing, that's what the annual service is for. So we'll remove those water spots during that time. Light, medium, heavy water spots are not impossible. So even after a long, hard day of fishing, tons of bonitas, tons of king, come on, we know how nasty it gets on the deck. The one thing to know that whether the fish blood dries on or you've been rinsing it all day, there's always gonna be some chunks left somewhere. Ceramic coatings are very easy to clean, so your worries of the blood on the cushions or on the decks or anywhere else for that matter are completely now taken care of. Just remember, everything we do here is all about the highest quality and the best practice in the industry.